Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Cabinet at Huddersfield Town Hall today. Can I ask all in attendance, can you turn off your mobiles or switch them to silent? And we'll move to item 1. Before I do that, I will let you know that this meeting is webcast, so just so that you're aware. So the membership of the committee, the Cabinet, we've got one apology for, she'll be arriving late, Councillor Yusra Hussain, she is on her way. It's traffic that's delaying her at the moment, so she is on her way. So we move on to item 2. Is there any declarations of interest? No? Okay. Admission of the public? Yes, but we've got one item that's in private, part of it, and that's on item 14. So we'll take that from there. Deputations, are there any deputations? Questions of from members of the public? None? So we'll move on to item 6, questions from elected members, and I do believe we've got Councillor Lawson online that will be joining us. And we've also got Councillor McGuinn, that is actually present. So John, we'll take your question first, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. Around the mothballing of the Cleckheaton Town Hall, I'd like to ask what the consultation is going to look like. I understand that there is going to be a non-statutory consultation. What form will that take and how long will that take? Because I understand that from the last Cabinet papers, you were wanting to do the mothballing at pace.
Councillor Turner, do you want to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lawson. As yet, we haven't drawn up the consultation papers. As you well know, most consultations last around 6 weeks, so I would envisage this lasting around 6 weeks as is standard practice. But as soon as we can get that done, you'll have to appreciate at this moment in time we have a lot of consultations going on, a lot of officer time being taken up on those current ones. So, but as soon as we can, we will get that started, and I would anticipate about 6 weeks.
Could I follow that up, please, Chair? Thank you, Chair. So could I ask that you undertake a business survey to assess the impact on Cleckheaton Town Centre of the Town Hall closing? I ask this for a specific reason. I have been approached over the previous few months by businesses asking about the future of the Town Hall because they factor in the Town Hall as a draw and as a footfall for their own businesses, which of course impacts their profits. So in terms of regeneration, I think there's a very reasonable ask to actually contact businesses directly and do your own business survey just to see what that impact looks at when you're making the case to mothball Cleckheaton Town Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. More than happy to have a conversation with our business team. Again, as you're probably aware, it's a very small team, but I will ask them to have a look at that and see what they think the implications may be.
Is that Councillor Lawson? Questions? Okay, I'll go to Councillor McGuinn.
Hi. It's about the rebuilding of the Woodley School at Almondbury. I'm not opposed to it. I've been quoted in the papers saying that. And I know it's important to build a new school for Woodley. I know the importance of keeping children in special ed in the Almondbury, in the Kirklees area, because of the costs involved. It will be a massive saving. My concern is about the loss of the swimming pool and sports centre. Can the new school provide these facilities for the community?
Councillor Reynolds or Councillor Kendrick? Well, you both... Right, okay, so because this matter... Right, okay, so because the matter goes across portfolio, there might be a few Cabinet members that will respond to you.
Okay, that's no problem.
I don't think the plans for Woodley School have anything included in terms of a swimming pool, although they may well include a therapy pool. I can't see that as a community thing. The swimming pool has been closed for quite a long time now. And as a sports centre, I am aware from previous portfolio work that it never equalled its costs. It was always over budget because of not enough users anyway. But logistically, it is about the fact that the boiler that heats the old school is the one that heats the sports centre and the swimming pool. And if the school goes, there is no boiler. And starting to build a whole new heating system and boiler system in what is quite an older sports centre now really isn't financially viable. So that's the bit I know. I don't know what colleagues want to add in.
Councillor Reynolds.
I was just going to mention the relative benefits, and I think you kind of got this anyway, that although we are losing a little bit of old stock of community buildings, the benefit across Kirklees is going to be huge for our children, and that cannot be underestimated. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Turner is also going to have some input.
And nothing to do with
Free
education.
for the price of one. Fantastic, Kath.
Sorry?
Free for the price of one.
I know.
Fantastic.
Because
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
prudent.
You obviously got the talent here today, Bernard. The issue of the sports centre at Allenbury is a long running saga, and it goes back probably 7 or 8 years when we started to look at costings across some of our operations. And as Councillor Kennedy rightly pointed out, it's been run at a loss for a considerable amount of time. We spent a lot of time looking at how we could invigorate it. We did leaflet drops, we engaged with the communities, we cut the hours down, we tried absolutely everything over a period of many years to try and get the usage up. We went to single staffing, we did all sorts, and we still couldn't get the sufficient footfall in there for it to generate anything near like its running costs. So unfortunately, that's the reason it will be lost to the community. It just wasn't washing its face by any stretch. I mean, it wasn't, and it genuinely was not for the want of trying. We tried all sorts of things, and in effect, at one point, it didn't even have a budget. We sort of absorbed it into its running costs into other parts of the budget. But we did try everything, but it's just not viable where it is, unfortunately.
Supplementary, Councillor McGuinn.
Well, it's really concerning. There's a private pre-nursery there. That's what my most concern is, really. I take your answer on the swimming pool. I don't like it, but I understand the reasoning behind it. But the mulberry bush, I just cannot understand the reasoning behind it, because they provide a great facility for the area. It's well loved, well liked. I'm putting another hat on here. I'm now the vice chairman of Hillview Primary School, which is adjacent to this site. So the pre-nursery provides a good supply of children to the school. It's really important for the area. Now, when Councillor Reynolds talked to us on Friday, was it last Friday? Oh, yep. It just seems a long week, a long time ago. I did mention the fact that the school has been negotiated for a long time to buy some land off Spy, because they manage the grounds for Kirklees Council. And since I've been on the Board of Governors for 2 years, and it's just been no progress made at all. Now, as I understand it, you are going to buy out the contract from Spy for that site. Is that correct? That's not my question, but is that correct?
Well, that's a question, so it won't
Well,
be
well,
answered,
well, okay.
So, no.
No, okay. I'll so if that's correct, okay, can some land be provided for the preschool nursery adjacent to Hillview, which would great, because most of the pupils come to that school
Can I
from
ask
the...
what your question is? We need a question.
Can land be provided on that site for Mulberry Bush to continue business and continue helping Hillview Primary School?
Are you all right answering that, Councillor Reynolds?
Yeah, I don't think that the answer is any different to what it was a week or so ago, but actually we have moved forward a little bit. A range of options are being looked at for the preschool. It was never the intention to close it, it was just to move it. due to building regulations and problems with the build and where it's actually situated. We're working incredibly closely with the owner of the preschool. We've got a visit booked in. We've already had conversations with her. We've got a visit booked in this week and probably again next week to look at different options. Until then, until we've actually explored what is available in the area, can't make any further comment, but I'm happy to keep you updated as time goes on.
Can I ask another question?
Okay, Councillor McGuinn? Yes.
Right, I did call in at the Mulberry Bush to speak to the manager there, and she said they have to be out by March. Now, that's not the question. If that is correct, that would really inconvenience the preschool. But seeing as you're not going to start building until the summer, is it possible to extend the contract to stay there a little bit longer so they get better prepared to move?
So, Councillor Gwynne, I'm going to bring Councillor Reynolds in, but just whilst you're on that subject and asking that question, that's a private negotiation that wouldn't be in the public demeanour. So I'm going to ask Councillor Reynolds to respond to the rest. But some of that, what you're asking, it's hearsay, what you've heard. So I'll pass Councillor Reynolds to answer that.
Yeah, I was going to point out that the negotiations are taking place with the owner. And they're at an early stage, but a really productive and really positive stage. I can't comment on the dates as yet. That still needs to be negotiated, and it's an ongoing negotiation. We'll keep you in well and truly in contact with what's going on, and yeah, it'll be useful to feedback and give you a briefing at a later date as well. Thank you.
John, have you any further questions that you'd like to ask? Are you okay? Are you waiting for the items as they appear on the agenda?
Yeah, they're all in the items. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. So we'll now move on to item 7, special educational needs and disability. So that's the SEND, increasing special school places. So that's Councillor Reynolds.
I think we could fight this one out as well. Just to kind of put it in context, looking for authority to progress plans at the moment to create additional spaces. What the proposal is based around is to increase the numbers available at Woodley College, as a school and college, to 194 pupil place gradually over time. This is part of the Woodley build, but it's also part of the satellite provision as well. This is ahead of and leading up to the new school build being completed. The proposed 194 places include 180 places at the proposed new school and up to 14 at the existing Woodley Post 16 satellite provision, currently just based in a new shop in Huddersfield Town Centre, which has been really quite a lovely addition to their provision. I think this gives us a variety of settings and helps to increase our specialist provision quite considerably. And I propose this is...
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Could I have a seconder?
Thank you, Chair. Very happy to second this, and I really want to emphasise that this isn't about savings. This is about investment in our children and young people with special educational needs who have the right to have proper education in proper facilities within Kirklees and not have to travel out of Kirklees. It's to be recommended, and I absolutely second it because it is the right thing to do.
Indeed so, Councillor Kendrick. So we've got a mover and a seconder, and the recommendations are set out at item 7, where all the recommendations are there and the reasons why. So can I have a show of hands? All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. So we're now moving on to item 8, the ad hoc scrutiny building panel, the health and safety compliance in residential housing stock. Councillor Ahmed.
Thank you, Chair. The report provides a progress update on the ad hoc scrutiny panel residential stock and health and safety compliance and recommendations. Recommendations first came to Cabinet in December 22 and were agreed. These will be going to GNR scrutiny panel on the 25th of March 24. The ad hoc scrutiny's 17 recommendations have been merged with actions identified in previous audits and are managed through regular updates at Building Safety and Assurance Board. Good progress has been made. 2 actions are complete, 6 are identified as ongoing. Good practice items that are remaining actions are over 50% complete. 2 of the 17 recommendations are completed, implementing the effective compliance system matrix at the Building Safety Assurance Board, and the recommendation now being in review the Housing and Improvement Board. Momentum gained through a recent project supported by Savills to redesign the management plans and process across the Big 6: fire, asbestos, water, lifts, gas and electric. Fire safety continues to make good progress with updates across policies and KPIs, implementations, plans for smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, and many person-centred fire risk assessments are now complete. Plans are in place to support residential safety. In relation to fire risk, there's a good engagement in place with 17 fire safety champions within the community. The IT replacement system for assets continues to be in view with the technology roadmap following the implementation of the housing management system. The report is due to Cabinet on the 16th of January 24 in relation to CX, the housing management IT system. I ask members to note officers' recommendations on page 28.7 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmad. So I'm going to second this, and I think it's a good news story. There has been progress made. There is the recommendation set out in section 7 that officers recommend that further updates be brought to Cabinet over the next 12 months in order to provide insurance and demonstrate progress made and seek further decisions on ongoing actions as appropriate. As I said, it is a good news story, so I am supporting it. I am aware that Councillor McGuinn's here in the audience, and also Councillor Lawson. Did you have any comments on this that you wanted to come in, or questions? So you're happy. So can we move to the vote? The recommendations are set out, as I said, and the reasons why in item 7. So can I have a show of hands? That's supported. Thank you. Carried. So we now go on to item 9. It's Kirklees local plan and the review and update. So I'll move it on to Councillor Turner.
Excuse me. Chair, thank you very much. Our current local plan was accepted by Council in 2019. We are obliged by law to review the local plan after 5 years. To this point, I spent a considerable amount of time discussing with officers how we should now proceed, given the 5 years is up next year. We could do a partial review, but given things have moved on significantly since 2019 in many ways, and it's clear that the 2019 plan can be improved and is not delivering, and after taking evidence from other local authorities that have had to review their local plan, it became clear that a full review is the best way forward. A full review is, of course, a lot of work, and will take some time, but the outcome will be a much better plan than a partial plan could provide. Also, given the uncertainty about the current future planning systems, we have noises coming from government, noises from potential future governments about how they may reform the planning system. It would make sense to have a plan that reflects any changes in the current system that may come about in the next few years. So, Chair, I ask Cabinet to approve this report and allow for officers to start prepare for a full review of our local plan.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I'll second that, and it's recommended that Cabinet that it goes to full council with a full update of the Kirklees local plan, and also another part in preparation of a revised statement of the community involvement with the authorisation to consult on the draft document. So I wish Cabinet to authorise that to the Strategic Director of Growth and Regeneration. So are you all supportive of that? Oh, sorry, John, I didn't realise that you'd put your hand up. So I'm just going to bring Councillor Lawson in.
Don't worry, Chair, I knew it would get spotted. Thank you. So a couple of questions around this item. We know that the levelling up bill is about to reach maturity. It's about to be passed. It's gone through various changes and a lot of different mutations, as it were. One of the issues, though, in there is that top-down targets, housing targets, will be no longer. They won't be existing. They'll be locally based. So, can I ask what assessment you've made of that change in the legislation? It refers to it that it's been noted, but there's no further detail than that in the report. So, if we could have some idea of your thoughts on that, thank you.
Councillor Turner.
Until we actually get the legislation through and see what they mean by top-down targets, because they may well have a definition themselves from government. What I do hope in this process is that, unlike last time, where we had to use, as we all know, outdated information that skewed the figures in the plan, caused a lot of extra work and heartache for many people when it didn't need to. So we need to really wait and see whether they do come with a definition excuse me, of what top-down targets actually mean. And I'd like to think that it allows us to develop our own structure and our own targets based on our knowledge of our population and taking into account the current birth rate, not something from years gone by, which we had to do last time. So hopefully there'll be enough flexibility in there for us to develop, again, a much better plan than we did last time, because as I say, the figures didn't help us, did they, if we're honest?
So if I may, Chair.
Yes, that's fine, John.
Thank you. No, you're right on that, and I think previous figures that we used were deliberately high, and that was, I think, in hindsight, that was probably a mistake. I'd just like to ask a couple more questions, if I may. I mean, one is about the reduction of housing building numbers due to density and developers not really developing sites to the full potential. So, for example, the Merchant Fields allocation was that had a 400 housing number by it, and it only delivered 290. Now, one of the issues in that causes is that more land will have to be allocated. So, what will we be doing in the review to address that problem?
Sorry, didn't catch it. Some of the sites in the last local plan were over-optimistic across many sites. There was too many houses expected when we actually get, these are desktop exercises really. And it's only when you get on site sometimes you find issues that don't allow you to develop the amount of houses you may think you can develop. So there's many sites in there that are never going to deliver the amount of houses we anticipated. Some, as you rightly point out, are already started. Some have yet to come on stream. So we didn't get it right. I'm accepting that. We didn't get it right. We were over-optimistic on some sites. But hopefully, as we've learned lessons and we go to do the next local plan, we'll take those lessons on board, and the figures for housing per site we deliver will be hopefully more accurate, and we'll deliver those much needed houses in the future. But we didn't, those sites some of them were, as it's turned out, they were over-optimistic once you do ground conditions, etc. So we did get some of it wrong. That's why we need a full review of the local plan to try and get it as near, it will not be perfect, nothing ever is in life, but to get it as near to perfect as you possibly can.
John, have you got a supplementary on that one?
Chair, I've got a couple more questions if you can indulge me, but if there's anybody who wants to ask questions now, I'm quite happy to ask them in a minute. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. Councillor McGuinn.
Oh, I suppose I could ask about when we had a planning review in May to get training for to be on the planning committees. We were told that there was a 5-year stock, more than a 5-year stock of land available, but suddenly it's just been a massive change the last 6 months. Could you explain what had happened and why that was?
Councillor Turner.
One of the problems with the 5-year land supply is some of the plan, as I said earlier, the figures in the local plan were over-optimistic. We were supposed to deliver 1,700 units per year, and the best we've done so far from memory is about 1,000. So even in the best year, we were slipping 700 behind. So we were always going to reach a point where we weren't delivering that 1,700, where we wouldn't be able to deliver a 5-year land supply. We're aware of it. We've got a paper coming shortly to start to address some of those issues. But as I say, we were aware that at some point it was likely that optimistic figure of 1,700 we were never going to reach. So that's one of the reasons for it, that we can't make that target. And without getting too hung up on this, is the 1,700. It's a bit of a problem, isn't it? Because we don't build houses. We rely on developers to build houses. We rely on developers to get the sites, bring them to market and sell those houses. And if they're doing that, and they're not doing that, or they're not capable of doing that, or there isn't capacity within the building industry, or there isn't a demand for houses, as we well know, the housing market is not in a great place at the moment. Read yesterday the prices are still going down. We get held responsible for something that's outside our control. It's a bit of a daft system where we're asked to do something, but we've got absolutely no control over it. So hopefully, as I say, we have a paper coming shortly, and the new plan will have a much more realistic and open figure about what we can achieve in the life of the next plan.
Councillor McGuinn.
Well, turn it off. Accept what you're saying, Graham, no problem with that. When we had the problem with housing supply in the past, before the local plan was endorsed in 2019, planning committees were told, look, if a plan for building was put forward, we had to basically accept it, and of course, with the planning officers looking over it and making sure the conditions were met. Are we going to be in that situation now?
So what you're referring to is what's commonly known as POL, which was the provisional open land sites. And you're right, when we didn't have a 5-year land supply before, the POL sites came into what we describe as come into play. So they were easy meat for the developers. When that happened, Leeds took 10 sites on and had public inquiries on 10 sites and lost every single one of those at the public inquiry stage. We did 2. We lost the first one, and the second one, when we realised we were never going to win it, we presented no evidence and walked away from that. So it did open up the POL sites to the developers, and they cherry-picked the best sites. We all know they did, and probably would expect from a capitalist developer. Whilst we have some land we don't have POL as such, we have safeguarded land. There is not as many sites currently in the plan as there were under POL, so it's less likely that we will find that cherry picking going on with developers. They may well find some sites, but there's not that many, and they're not as fruitful for developers as the previous POL sites were.
Thank you, Councillor McGuinn. Councillor Lawson, do you want to come back in again?
Yes, thank you. So my first question is around the green belt. In the last exercise, the last plan, there was a principle that greenbelt could be brought forward for allocation, as long as an equal amount was actually put into greenbelt. If I remember correctly, I think that was the principle in play there. I do not expect anything that was formally greenbelt in the first place when that plan started to come out of that allocation. That would be very rare indeed. I'm just wondering the extent to which that might come into play this time round. Is there any intent to pull what's currently greenbelt forward into an allocated for planning?
Councillor Turner.
Don't know. We haven't started the process. We haven't started the process yet. This is only seeking permission to start the process. As you well know, this will take several years to develop. And during that time, we will have to look at the current demand, try and predict as best we can future demand, and that will be weighed up against what land we have available. And in the meantime, we may find some of our larger sites come on stream. We're working on several large sites across Kirklees at the moment. So some of theirs may come on stream. So it will depend on demand as best we can predict it at the time and for the future years as to whether Greenbelt's included or not. And again, we all know that at some point in the next 12 months there will be a general election, and the two parties that are likely to win that both have different policies on housing. So by the time we get round to that, we will have different policies from one government or another. So we need to, those will be taken into account at the time, but we're only seeking permission to start this. We've done no work on it yet. So we're a long way short of deciding whether we need to adopt some Greenbelt in there. My preference would be, if we can get away without putting Greenbelt in, absolutely that would be the right thing to do. But it will depend on the projections going forward as to how many homes we need for our population in the future.
Thanks. A further question, it's not a supplementary, but a further question is, how do you intend to make the rules around social houses for social rent more robust in this local plan? Will there be a specific SPD, or will there be specific lines in the plan to bolster those houses for social rent?
We always want to improve the amount and increase the amount of houses we have for social rent. Some of this will depend on, again, on the state of the housing market, where finance can be brought in from, because obviously the social rent can cost a significant amount of money. So you need somebody to work with. We need a partner organisation for to do some of our own to provide that capital to build those houses. We will strive. We will generally strive to get as much social rented housing in there as possible, but as you well know, this is a process. This is not just our decision. The developers, the landowners, the supply chain all have an input into this, and it will have to be signed off by a government inspector who will follow the policies of the government of the time as to what their thoughts are around social rent. But we will strive to get as much social rented housing in there as absolutely possible. But as I said, there are factors in this that are out of our control in what is ultimately commercial market. We have to work with those people, but I can assure you, during the life of the process, we will do all we can to get that in there. It's vital in this country and vital in Kirklees that we provide more decent quality social housing for rent. Absolutely. It's a priority for us. And me.
Any further,
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Lawson?
They're all oodles, but not for today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we've had a mover and I've seconded it, and the recommendations are set out in section 7 of this paper. Could I have a show of hands for support? That's moved, carried. So we're now moving on to item 10, the update on the proposal for the redevelopment of Sycamore Grange at Golka in Huddersfield, and it's Councillor Ahmed.
Thank you, Chair. The report seeks approval of a scheme budget envelope and delegated authority to submit a planning application, issue tenders and enter into contracts for the demolition of the existing building and a design and build contract for a new retirement living scheme of apartments and bungalows. On 21st of December 22, Cabinet agreed to demolish and redevelop the current Sycamore Grange site and for tenants to be supported in finding alternative accommodation. Officers have been helping existing tenants to find an alternative home, and tenants were engaged in January and April this year. Residents in the streets around Sycamore Grange have also been engaged in April. You can see the comments that were received from tenants and residents in Appendix 2, page 95 of the report. These comments have informed the proposals and the scheme and also been considered and supported by the tenants' voice panel. The draft scheme details are shown in Appendix 3 on page 97 of the report. The proposals show a new L-shaped retirement living scheme building of 41 apartments, 14 bungalows and further 2 apartments in 2 blocks. The scheme will make better use of the site and provide a variety of homes to meet older residents' needs and their housing and health circumstances change. Further detailed design and specification work will be undertaken, although obtaining planning permission will be a key step. The scheme will provide wheelchair-accessible apartments and bungalows, and the design approach will ensure there is sufficient space and flexibility to adapt to residents' changing needs, whether they have or go to live with mobility issues or dementia, for example. This report draft proposal shows significant progress in responding to actions previously agreed by Cabinet. It is an opportunity to make a real difference in providing affordable housing for older people in the area of Golker and South Kirklees. Ask Cabinet members to endorse this scheme and approve the officer recommendations outlined on page 91.9 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Councillor Turner?
Yeah, I'd like to support this scheme. It's I'm obviously the ward member for Sycamore. I also actually live around the corner. It's an ideal place. It's a good design. It's on a decent or as good as bus route as you get these days. And I had this conversation with Masood only yesterday.
Yeah.
There's several small shops within walking distance. The doctors is not a million miles away. It's a perfect place for a retirement home. And I very, very much welcome this, and I hope that we can get on site as soon as possible, get it knocked down and get this new facility that is much needed across Kirklees, and I'm looking forward to it opening and providing this much needed facility for our residents. So I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Reynolds, did you want to come in?
I wanted to echo the comments of Councillor Turner. If he hadn't got there first, I would have seconded it myself. Yeah, fabulous opportunity. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lawson, did you want to make a comment or anything on this one? Councillor McGuinn? No? So you've got a mover and a seconder, and I'd just like to say this is actually excellent news. 41 retirement apartments. And, you know, despite things that are going on, this council are very proactive trying to get things done, and I just think it's really encouraging that we're actually able to go ahead with this. So can I ask everybody to a show of hands of in favour? Thank you. That's carried. So we're going to move now on to the item 11, the reprofile of Kirklees Resource and Waste Strategy 2021 to 2030. And I'd like to introduce Councillor Hussain.
Thank you, Chair. The Kirklees Waste Strategy for 2021-30 was approved and adopted at full council, as we're all aware, in September 2021. So since the launch of the strategy, there's been significant uncertainties around the government legislation for waste management and associated funding. So this is more important than ever, given the current financial landscape, as in the UK, has entered a cost of living crisis, and meaning the council is facing increased demands and financial pressures. Given the above, a reprofiling of the resources and waste strategy has been undertaken to revise the targets and set out the deliverables within, and this is to allow us time for more clarity and allow the council to make sound choices without losing that level of ambition. In terms of the background, the resource of waste strategy is included alongside this report, which sets out in Appendix 1, and it's aimed to achieve our vision of clean, green and a sustainable future for Kirklees, with a zero waste to landfill and where waste is valued as a resource through reuse, recycling and recovery. There's many positive initiatives here delivered as part of the strategy, including, but not limited to, recycling services to schools and businesses and trade waste services, adding plastic pots, tubs and trays in the PTT's ambition to our curbside recycling collection service, offering a composite subsidies scheme to residents, offering new bookable bulky waste collection service and launching a reuse shop in Huddersfield Town Centre as well. So the strategy obviously replicates many aspects of the detailed sort of outline that we get from DEFRA's National Resources and Waste Strategy in England, which was obviously published in 2018. And the Cabinet was asked at the time to note when approving the strategy at the time on ongoing delays to the government's environmental bill, which obviously at the time was posing a risk to the delivery of this strategy. In terms of significant delays, unfortunately they are expected due to the funding from the central government, which was meant for a short period of time, but it's actually extended to a longer period of time. And to be able to deliver some of our larger scale changes to collections within the timescales we'd had previously outlined, so including running out curbside glass and food collections, so there's been a delay on that as a result. So without the ability to implement a larger scale changes, the targets set out in the strategy require realignment. And it is noted, however, that we have successfully met our diversion from landfill targets, and so this has been increased further in line with our ambition for zero avoidable waste to landfill. The report sets out the revised targets, the 12-month pledge as well, in terms of the commitment initiatives on an annual basis. It also looks at our contractual engagements as well as the reuse shop procurement and the depot requirements as well, which are outlined in detail within the report. In terms of implications for us, we're trying to consider this strategy as a way to do with rather than do to the community. So we're trying to work with the people, work with partners in various ways, and obviously implement our place-based working initiatives as well. In terms of climate change as well, there's the overall strategy that plays a key role in tackling climate change, improving our air quality and measures within the strategy, which will have a reduction on both. And one very, very exciting project, as well as many others in this report, is the improvement outcomes for children. So one of the main strategies is for us to engage with schools, universities, colleges, to try and bring them on board with us in terms of creating that educational space for people to value the benefits of recycling. And the financial implications I outlined in this report as well. We do continue to work with the voluntary sector as well and the business community to offer access to waste reduction and advice and affordability. And we've also undertaken integrated impact assessment, which was completed for the development of Kirklees resource waste strategy for 2021 and 2030. And this assessment showed a positive impact overall in relation to the most vulnerable people in our district who may be in poverty or low income. And the strategy also shows a commitment and intends to enable all residents of Kirklees as well. Like I said earlier, it's not a do to, it's do with, and therefore we have highlighted a consultation within the report which has been undertaken, and there's been extensive engagement being made with the public when formulating the resource and waste strategy. An extensive engagement process was conducted in autumn 2020, and the strategy incorporates the findings of that exercise. It's also update of the 12-month and 5-year commitments within the original strategy, and the update has been formulated with further internal engagement, public scrutiny and discussions with DEFRA, and it primarily reflects the changes of the central government legislation, funding and timeframes. So in terms of next steps, what we're looking at is to this strategy to be published, in obviously with Cabinet's approval onto the website, with a 12-month pledge to commence. And there will be annual pledges made for following 12-month deliverables until a new resource waste and strategy is published. So, if agreed, where detail and planning will commence for works on the depot expansion, with a further report to Cabinet outlining timelines and financial requirements, and that's detailed in the report. Obviously, there's officers' recommendation in paragraph 13. So I am asking the Cabinet members to support the officer's recommendations and recommends that the Cabinet accept and endorse this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hussain. Councillor Lawson, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask on that?
Yes, thanks. Yeah. First of all, I think I'd like to ask about the anaerobic digestion issue. I've often spoke against having such a provision within the authority, simply because it usually turns out not to be cost effective, and it gets to be underused over time as people become more aware of food waste.
Lawson, sorry, yeah. I can't hear you that well. Sorry.
Okay.
Just bear with us, Councillor Hussain. Well, it might be a mic issue here or a volume issue here, so we'll just check that, John. Just bear with us. Sorry, John, I turned my mic off.
You
Would
did.
you mind asking that question again, please?
Yes,
Because we couldn't
of
hear
course.
it.
Of course. On page, what are we at? Page 47, 5.3 waste disposal, we're talking about food waste and anaerobic digestion facilities. Now, I hope that that's referring to access outside the borough. I've often spoke about the inefficiency of basically Kirklees buying one at the cost of several £1 million, and then it kind of the use of it slacking off as people become more aware of food waste, and it commodifying food waste as well, actually turning it into produce. Could you just explain what we mean by access routes to anaerobic digestion facility means? Are we tapping into other authorities' facilities there?
Did you mention paragraph 5.3, Councillor Lawson?
In one of the tables, section 5.3 waste disposal, we're on page 47 of the report, I think. Page 155.
So it's not page 155.
155 of the pack. Okay.
In terms of your question,
Yeah.
I will go away and come back to you with a response, if that's okay, Councillor Lawson.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it is specifically mentioned in legislation, I think, isn't it? Is
Yeah.
food waste. So I think what I'd prefer is that people were made more aware about food waste rather than the commodification of that food waste and turning it into a product to feed an anaerobic digestion that's going to cost us money.
I note your point. I'll take that away and come back with you with a response, Councillor Lawson. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there any further questions, Councillor Lawson? Was that the only one? Yes.
No, I'll stick to that. Thank you.
So, as Councillor Hussain says, your comments will be noted, and there will be a response back to you directly. But equally, we do agree with what you've just said there. So,
thank you.
Councillor McGuinn, did you have a question? So, can I ask for a seconder to move that? Councillor Ahmed has seconded it. So, members, can I ask for a show of hands? All those in favour? Thank you. So, we're now going on to item 12, Kirklees Stadium and Kirklees Stadium Developments Limited. Further revision to previously agreed approach. Members, there's an item that was to be taken in private, item 14. Can you confirm that you've all read the papers, or do we need to go into private session? All confirmed? Yes, they've been read. So we'll move on to item 12. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. As we are all aware in Cabinet, we have for some time been working on a plan to find a resolution to the financial issues at KSDL. Talks and negotiations have been ongoing for many years, many years now, but have yet to be resolved. This report asks Cabinet to approve the relevant director to conduct negotiations with both stakeholders with a view to them taking full operational control of the stadium. Of course, any agreement will have to be ratified by Cabinet and full council following detailed reports of any agreement reached. It's also worth pointing out that we retain the freehold, so even if a deal can be done with either owner or both owners, the freehold of the site will remain with the council, so there is no risk to the loss of the stadium to the public of Kirklees. I fully support the recommendations on this report and hope, finally, that real progress in this issue can be made, especially given we now appear to have a committed and stable ownership of the football club. Chair, I ask Cabinet to approve this and the relevant approved authorisations to the relevant director.
Sorry, before we go to the vote, Councillor Lawson, I believe you've got your hand up. Is it a question?
Yes, thank you. Could I ask when and if is this coming to scrutiny? Will it go before scrutiny? I believe that a multi-million pound write-off of public money should be fully accountable and the decisions should be examined. I asked the last cabinet about areas of learning, and I cited several areas where we'd made mistakes as a council, and I think if we don't learn from those mistakes, we are really not doing our job properly. So could I ask again then whether this is coming to scrutiny or not?
Councillor Turner.
It'll come to scrutiny. There'll be something to report on. At this moment in time, we have nothing to report on. As I said, the service director is in negotiations with the two other shareholders within KSDL. So until we've got something to report back to scrutiny, I don't see the point. But as soon as there's any movement, or we think we might be able to get a deal done, absolutely will come to scrutiny. You're absolutely right. Scrutiny should look at this. As I said, at this moment in time, there's very little for them to look at. But I can assure you, it will come to scrutiny when there's something to scrutinise.
Okay, Councillor Lawson.
Yes, just one more point. Thank you. In terms of constructive scrutiny, don't you think that the earlier scrutiny is involved, the better, and that there might be several hints and tips and some useful challenge if scrutiny is involved before you make your full document and report to scrutiny officially?
I think we've already learnt lessons from this, but don't forget we're talking about a deal that was in effect somewhere about 30 years ago. So, you know, what looked like a good deal at that time probably was a good deal at that time. The world's moved on, the sports moved on, both sports have moved on. The facilities have a different use when they're not being used for the traditional sports there. So, yes, of course, we learn lessons all the time. We will take any lessons on this on board. I generally don't see what the value of scrutiny is at the moment because there's nothing to scrutinise. There's negotiation to be had between the other two shareholders, and as soon as there's something looks like a deal may be able to be done, I'd be happy to take it to scrutiny. But I think it's probably not a good use of scrutiny's time to look at something that doesn't really exist yet. But as soon as there's something that I think scrutiny should look at, even if it's only the germ of a plan, I'm more than happy to take that to scrutiny.
Okay, Councillor Lawson, is that the end of your questions?
Just one last cheeky one. Sorry, Chair. Will we, as a result of what's happened at KSDL, will we be reassessing our relationships with our partners and how our governance works on those panels?
Councillor Turner.
I'd like to think we're constantly reviewing our relationships to ensure that we get the best deal from those partnerships and that the partners get a good deal as well, because partnership is only any good if both parties get something out of it. So I'd like to think we're constantly reviewing our partnerships, whether it's the various ones we have. We've got a number of them, as you well know, across all different sectors of the authority. I'd like to think we're constantly reviewing them and ensuring that those relationships are working in the right way and you know, developing those relationships as well, because relationships are really important to how the council works. We work with lots of outside bodies, lots of different organisations. So I'd like to think that the relevant directors and portfolios continue to develop relationships with our partners in whatever area of the council it is.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I'm going to bring Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Just a statement that I am one of the council nominees as director of KSDL. I'm not involved in the negotiations. Those are clearly negotiations between the council and the shareholders, but I do sit on the board representing the council.
So thank you. We've got a proposer, Councillor Turner. I'm going to second this, and I think it's key what you said, John, about scrutiny, but equally we can't judge something and make presumptions about monies and losses. It's a negotiation that's not even been entered into yet. So until we have that information in front of us, we'll take the vote for this to go forward. So thanks for your inputs, but I do hear what you said about scrutiny. So can I ask members, all those in favour? That's carried. So I'd like to thank you for your Thank you.